calling? What would you perceive it as? Well, them being the seed of Abraham, they've kind of had it like we've been going over before. They've had it since the beginning. They know all the gospel up until this point. So he's just calling their memories partakers of the heavenly calling, kind of letting them know we're all in this, kind of the same sense, we're going down the same path. Consider the apostle and high priest of our profession, Christ Jesus, who was faithful to him that appointed him, as also Moses was faithful in all his house. So this right here in profession is just who you profess. It doesn't mean your actual job or what you do in this case. But who was faithful to him that was appointed him, as also Moses was faithful in all his house. For this man was counted worthy of more glory than Moses, inasmuch as he who had built the house hath more honor than the house. For every house is built by some man, but he that built all things is God. So again, when it's talking about a house here, it doesn't mean one house. It's more like a bunch of them gathered together. I think you call them villas in some places, but the house banners of war when it's coming up, usually consisting of the manor where all the royalty and stuff are, or just heads of the house. And then you have the people who live there in exchange for work. I guess you would call it indentured servitudes, but some probably not, just passers-by. Stayed for a couple of years and worked there. But when it's saying the house, why would it say he who builds the house has more glory than the house? So, you can think back a little bit to when Jesus was talking to the Hebrews as well when he was here. And they say if you swear by the temple, it is nothing. But if you swear by the gold of the temple, that is something. So Jesus was mad at him for doing that. Why? Because of what's better, the house or the gold in the house? The house. Did you guys have a good Christmas? You're kind of quiet. Mom's got glasses on her face. And Moses verily was faithful in all his house as a servant for a testimony of those things which were to be spoken after. But Christ as a son over his own house. So now we're getting into the house of Christ here. Whose house are we? So this was very dangerous in Hebrews. He just called himself, or the house that the Hebrews were, house of Christ. He was saying, acknowledging this is the continuance of that. That's what a lot of them were getting in trouble for, was for adding Christ to the end. A lot of the Hebrews and Jews didn't like that. That's why they went around with Paul and Timothy and persecuting everything. But this right here is acknowledging it, that just like Moses in his house, who they do serve and who they do worship, to keep carrying on with that same house, but now it's Jesus taking it over. You kind of have to put yourself in the Hebrews and understand just what's happening in all this at the time. How would you approach these people and who you're talking to? So I'm leaning towards a lot of people in Hebrews to this point. He's talking to the Hebrews that do believe, but he's giving them more reason why, and kind of giving them ways to defend themselves, and just further proving why this is the Messiah that we all chose to believe is continuing on. Whose house are we if we hold fast the confidence and rejoicing of the hope firm unto the end? Wherefore, as the Holy Ghost saith, today if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts as in the provocation in the day of temptation in the wilderness, when your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my works 40 years. Wherefore I was grieved with that generation, and said, they do always err in their heart, and they have not known my ways. So I swear in my wrath, they should not enter into my rest. That statement right there, 11. I swear in my wrath, they shall not enter into my rest. It's going to keep going even into the next chapter, and it's going to further break that down. But where does this come from? This is in Hebrews. But where are they getting that from? Anybody remember? Kind of a lot of places. But in Exodus, wherefore the people did chide with Moses, I'm sure a lot of you know the story, give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, why chide ye with me? Wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? So they've seen all these miracles, they've gone out into the wilderness, but now it's getting to the point where they're thirsty. So they're starting to push starting to ask for things, starting to rely less on faith and more on demands. And that's what the chide part is, just bother, annoy with. And the people thirsted there for water, and the people murmured against Moses and said, "Wherefore is it that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt, to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst?" That was the statement that probably went to overboard with God. That was where they're not in faith anymore and they're doubting. And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, "What shall I do unto these people? They be almost ready to stone me." The Lord said unto Moses, "Go on before the people, and take with thee the elders of Israel, and thy rod, wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thine hand, and go. So, behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock of Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come out water out of it, that the people may drink." And Moses did so in the sight of the children, or in the elders of Israel. So you all remember the story. This, some people attribute to why Moses wasn't able to see the or he was able to see it but not enter into the promised land. But they wanted water, they kept bothering him. He prayed to God, "What do I do about it?" So God said, "Take your staff, go, hit a rock, river's going to come out, and they're going to drink from that." And even still, well, we'll just keep on. It'll come up. And the Lord said, "I have pardoned according to thy word, but as truly as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord. Because all those men which have seen my glory and my miracles, which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tempted me now these 10 times, and have not hearkened unto my voice." So even still, after, we're thirsty, Moses hits a rock, water comes out, and they drink. They still go back to tempting God and trying to provoke God to jealousy with calves and other idols and stuff. Why? To kind of get what they want, or to kind of push it. Not knowing that's the whole reason they were kept in the wilderness for 40 years, is because they kept doing stuff like that. "But surely they shall not see the land which I swear unto their fathers, neither shall any of them that provoke me see it." And that is again stated in Psalms. "O come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. For he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand. Today if you will hear his voice," it comes up again, "harden not your heart as in the day of provocation, as in the day of temptation in the wilderness. When your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my work, 40 years long was I grieved with this generation." 40 years, when they were in the wilderness. "And said, It is a people that do err in their heart, and they have not known my ways, and to whom I swear in my wrath, they shall not enter into my rest." Keeps reiterating that all throughout the Old Testament unto Hebrews where we were. "So take heed, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God." So he knows that the sides are split now. Jesus came, some Hebrews accepted Jesus, went with him, some didn't. And they were the ones that are still going around persecuting the Christians. Paul was one of them. So he was telling them, let's take heed and not be, because every time things are going good with God, we have a tendency to kind of take that for granted and backstep a little bit and cause others to backslide. So he's reiterating the importance. Let's not do that this time. We have all these examples that have happened from our ancestors. Be careful, because take heed lest you fall. Be careful, because it might happen again. Let's not let it. But exhort one another daily while it is called today. That word today is important too. It's going to come up a little bit more. "Lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. For we are made partakers of Christ, if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end. While it is said, today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts," as in the provocation. So today in this sense doesn't necessarily mean today, as in like today is Sunday, but it kind of does too. It just kind of means what we would say now is to date. Like, so to date, having gone through all of this, if you will hear his voice, because you've heard of everything God's done, you've seen everything God done up to this point, harden not your hearts, as in the provocation. For some, when they heard it, did provoke, howbeit not all that came out of Egypt by Moses. So not all of them provoked that word there, but some did, and this is where it's saying, careful, because there's another split kind of happening. "But with whom was he grieved 40 years? Was it not with them that had sinned, whose carcasses fell in the wilderness?" People who started worshiping the idols and the calves and stuff. So he's saying this doesn't apply to everybody. Let's be on the right side of this. "And to whom sware he that they should not enter into his rest, but to them that believed not. So we see that they could not enter in because of unbelief. Unbelief is why they did that. Not for, I guess it is for the worshiping of idols and stuff, because they did that in their unbelief, that God was still taking care of them, or that God would take care of them anymore. So they just immediately turned to that. Just when they get thirsty, when they get hungry in the wilderness, start worshiping idols again. And why cow? I have no idea. Gold, I guess. But it picks right back up. So we see that they could not enter in because of unbelief. Let us therefore, what? Fear. Again, once you start paying attention to fear, it's pretty much how the Bible steers and leads people. Lest a promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. So he's just acknowledging here, like, look, we've had this since the beginning. It is promised to us, but it was also promised to our ancestors, and they lost it because God was mad with them and swore that they wouldn't enter into his rest through his wrath. So it's saying again, let us be afraid that this doesn't happen to us, that we lose our promise because we start being coupled with unbelief. Any of you seem to come short of it, for unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them. It's like, we're not hearing nothing new that the people from Moses didn't. They knew what to do and they didn't do it, same as we know what to do. Are we going to do that? Is this the thing that we should be doing? But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. So they heard the gospel, like, listen, God's got a plan in here for the wilderness. We just got to keep walking. He led us out of Egypt. He blocked Pharaoh, split the sea, gave us manna, gave us water that one time when he hit the rock. God's looking out for us. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to worship the cow anyway. So nothing that God had planned for them, nothing he was working for them, did them any good because it wasn't mixed with faith. They didn't believe even though they were getting it right there. It's crazy to me. But that's what he's telling them. We have a tendency to do this. For we which have believed do enter into rest. If you have the faith and the works there, you enter into rest. As he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. So God created the world in how many days? 7, of course. When did he rest?
On the 7th day.
But we still count it, right? As the works of God. So they were all finished at the 6 days, and then boom, there was a planet. Did he just stop working forever there? Creating, yeah. But did he just stop working? In fact, that's it. It's up to you now, guys. Maybe made Adam. It's like, all right, keep going. No, it didn't. So that's where, remember that exactly, as it's going to help you as we move forward right through here, because it gets a little complicated. For he spake in a certain place of the 7th day on the wise, and God did rest the 7th day from all his works. So on the 7th day, God probably didn't do anything at all on that. He rested. That doesn't mean it's still the 7th day. And in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest. Seeing therefore it remaineth that some must enter therein, and they to whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief. So, God promised that, and just as he rested on the 7th day, he promised that some people are going to come in. So because he promised some are going to come in, seeing therefore it remaineth that some must enter. So there are people that have to enter for God to not. For what God said to be true here, and they to whom it was first preached enter not in because of unbelief. So it wasn't them in that sense. Alright, this is complicated. This is what me and Tony talk about a lot, but so I'm going to keep reading a little bit because it just stays right in it. Again, he limiteth a certain day, saying in David, Today, after so long a time, as it is said, Today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts. So again, he keeps drawing back parallel to the people in Egypt, to Moses, to the ancestors. And he was saying that they say today, if you heard it, but they said today, even back in Exodus, today, if you will hear it. So obviously it must still be going because Jesus said it again today, meaning that day hadn't came yet as the 7th day of rest. Keep going, and you'll get it more. For if Jesus had given them rest, then would he not afterward have spoken of another day? So he wouldn't have even said it another day if we were already in the rest that those people got from there. So just getting to Israel wasn't necessarily the rest they were promising. There remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God. For he that is entered into his rest, he also hath ceased from his own works as God did from his. Let us labor therefore to enter into that rest. So some would argue that back then we're entered into the rest because we come from the ones who still believed and got to inherit the promised land. But he's drawing back to that, saying it's not into the rest yet, else Jesus wouldn't have said, today if you will hear, harden not your hearts, meaning that the day was still present where you do have to work, so we're not on the Sabbath yet. And then it reiterates that here, let us labor therefore to enter into that rest. So labor into the rest, meaning that the rest has not come yet. I don't know why they argue that so much, but that God doesn't do anything anymore. God's already in the rest. Everything, it all died out with the apostles, which doesn't really make sense because that's after Jesus anyway. But yeah, how do we through a lot of that to get to this point? Lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief. For the word of God is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. Neither is there any creature that is not manifest in his sight. That means hidden. You can't keep secrets from God. You know, like you try to hide stuff from your parents and different things, and from teachers and other people at school. Well, God sees everything. Not manifest just means it's not hidden. That is hidden in his sight. But all things are naked and open unto the eyes of him with whom we have to do. Seeing then that we have a great high priest that is passed into the heavens, Jesus the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession. To keep professing Jesus, to keep professing God. That is our work. That is what we must do, because nothing is hidden from God. Let us keep doing it. For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities. Meaning he does now have the empathy, the sympathy, all of it for us, because he came down, like we talked about before, as a good leader and experienced it so that he may be a better judge in that day. So it's not saying, or what it's saying here is, it's not like Jesus doesn't know what we're going through, because he went through it as well. So, but was in all points tempted like we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly into the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Just saying, now that Jesus come back, we have a work to do, but we can also rest in Jesus at the same time that it is not that day. We just don't need to harden our hearts as our ancestors did. And now we have a new person that we can turn to in our prayers, in our faith, in everything is Jesus, because he came down and experienced everything the same way we did. And it ends. I'm going to have to do these, 3 chapters to get it to make sense.
Very good.